Good afternoon. When Brian asked me to come and talk here about optimism, my talk on that was, are you absolutely sure? And I put my slides together and sent them to Alan this week, and the first thing that came back was, are you absolutely sure you want to use these slides? So let's see how we get on first of all. Now, it occurred to me the other day, I'm a Bonnyrigg Rose season ticket holder. I am the definition of optimism. So, and I want you to memorize this because I'll be asking questions at the end, okay? I'm part of a small team. I'm about to launch into 40 years in 10 minutes, so strap in. I'm part of a small team, some of whom are moving among us today, based at the University of Glasgow. We've been studying the Clyde and its various tributaries for the last 20, 25 years. The Clyde is one of the great rivers of the world. It is a recovering river. We've abused it. It's getting its act back together. And it's in the part of Scotland where the people are. Clyde salmon, an explainer. Basically, they became extinct in the late 1800s with the development of the shipyards and the pollution and the various things. Started to reappear in the lower Clyde tribs in the 1960s. And 83 is the sort of year what we consider as the pivotal year. Large numbers of adults started to appear. This was the first picture of a Clyde salmon trying to get over Blantyre Weir on the main stem. If you've ever seen that weir, that salmon is a long way above the river. But they get up there. And since 1996, we've had a fishery. Probably the most urban Atlantic salmon fishery in the world. Proper fishery. I'm not including the Thames in that. And if you can see there, that starts about 96. There are about 120 years of zeros before that. So ideally, you wouldn't start from there. So when I arrived in 2002, this was the extent of the electric fishing that had been done on the catchment. I'm a scientist, usually. SEPA had done about 130 odd sites. And a couple of young, up-and-coming fisheries biologists, Ross Gardner and John Armstrong, had worked through the Kelvin catchment, which was most helpful at the time. We are entirely data-led. This is what 2 million quid's worth of electric fishing looks like. Everything we do comes from the data that we have. Salmon on the Clyde are very kind to us. There are only 2-year classes. We don't have any of these multiple tiny little fish that you guys have to deal with. There's 0+, 1+, and then you go to sea. So we've got a nice, easy model to work with. And pretty much everything we do on the Clyde, as far as what I'm about to talk to you just now, which is the distribution of salmon, comes from Ross Gardner's, probably the 1996 map. Now, anybody who's ever been in Ross's office knows that isn't Ross's office. Or at least if he has, there's a skip somewhere just to the left with these lights. But joking apart, this is serious. In 1996, the lower Clyde, there was a little bit of the main stem where salmon were found and the lower Clyde tributaries. Since then, we've been working on them. Now, apologies to anybody who has red-green issues. We think where should these salmon be? A lot of effort going in to take put passes in. The red areas there are rivers that should have free passage from the sea that are about 3 meters wide or more. There are about 600 kilometers of them. So we took that as a base map, added our data over the top, and this is what it generates. We reckon that we've found salmon in about 40% of the area, the pre-industrial area. I'll come back to that in a bit. But there are still serious gains to be made in some of these tributaries. There are some serious issues on these with passage and one mighty man-made lake. But places where passage has been improved recently, talk a wee bit about that. First sort of case study. The Gotter Weir couldn't take that out. Fish had been banging their heads on it for about 10 years, 15 years beforehand. This is a still from a film, salmon jumping at it. The shuttering isn't even off the concrete on the steps. And within 6 months of that fish pass being put in, at our monitoring site above it, salmon were dominating it. They've now gone on to colonise all of a river that's available to them. Another one, just to give you an idea of how industrial these systems are or have been. That's the Kelvin catchment at the top there. Sometime in the 90s, they put a fish pass onto this weir at the bottom at the Flint Mill, £20,000. And that opened up about 60 kilometres of river, theoretically. Gavin's Mill was the next one, £100,000, opened up maybe 10 kilometres, if you like. And this one on the Garrel Burn, 2 fish passes and a bit of re-wiggling, little bit of catchment opened up, £4 million. And this is the £4 million salmon. This was the first one, the most expensive fish any of us have ever seen. That was the first one we found. We found them breeding above the thing subsequently, so it's not joking apart. Downstream of it, there's a rather large piece of re-wiggling. But that's part of the Kelvin. You can see the old channels there. This is the new one. It doesn't look like that now. It looks more like this. It's grown in quite nicely. We've got salmon spawning there, but we had salmon spawning in the old straight channel. So functionally, as far as salmon are concerned, probably not all that much different. And the interesting thing about the Kelvin subcatchment is we've lost over the years something like 23% of the entire river length. So when I'm talking about bringing salmon back to 40% of the catchment, we don't know what the baseline was. It's been shifted significantly. And the rate that it's coming back, if we take that re-wiggling, it's moved us from 1752 to 1754 or whatever it is. We've got a lot of re-wiggling that needs to be done to move things. I tried to blur Davy out here deliberately, but this is another site on the Leven where we've had some success recently. That we had recorded fish below that weir for years. It was taken out very efficiently last 2 winters ago. And what we found, this is the story here, for years and years and years we were finding salmon there. The red crosses are where the barriers are. There was money put in to take that one out. We suggested they might want to take that one out below it first, or at least at the same time. And it didn't happen, but that doesn't matter because when they moved this one, the fish got right up clean through there. So there's instant results for your investment there if you're interested in biodiversity credits. There's the £200,000 salmon right there. Now, when we start to play with rivers, we have to be really, really careful. This is the Craigmill Dam on the River Avon, which will become a major spawning tributary of salmon above this, I have no doubt at all. This needs to come out. It needs to come out, but can anybody see the potential problem there? This is the Straven Gala Day raft race, which has run for decades. This needs to be handled sensitively. Still needs to come out. Just saying. But it needs to be done sensitively. This is a rough map of where the barriers are on the Clyde still. And we have 20 odd of them, we think. We need to re-engineer and de-engineer the river. Lots of the places we're looking at, these rivers have been, urban rivers aren't like rivers you find out in the countryside. They've been engineered, especially in places like the Monklands, where the crucible of the Industrial Revolution in Scotland. These rivers are in an interesting condition. There are engineering solutions for everything we need to do. We just need the money. And we get the rivers we pay for in these settings. So I reckon, and I just made this up, I reckon we need about 30 million to clear off the barriers that we have and to let salmon. We have salmon on about 40% roughly of their former range. So what does 30 million get you? Well, on the Clyde, it gets you an extension to a high school. And in London, it gets you 37 new ticket gates at Victoria Station. This is worth investing in. It's a non-returnable, wonderful thing to do. Just to finish on the optimism thing, we have run projects for years and years and years talking to people about the state of the Clyde. We've just finished, yesterday, a Clyde in the classroom for this year. We've had 50,000 children through this, 2,000 classes we've taken to the river. Among our achievements with this is we now have an entire cohort of teachers who have done this as kids. And this year coming, we are very likely to have a student join us for a year from Glasgow Uni who did it as a kid. That kind of closes the loop for me. And what we're trying to do is to capture this. Because you can't fake this. And on 3 occasions in my career, I've stood with a little class of children in the Kelvin catchment and said, look, we are the only people alive who've ever seen a salmon from that piece of river. And that's a powerful thing. And this is a powerful thing as well. This happened last week. I didn't have the bottle to try and include the video. But check this out. We've had people on the streets of the East End of Glasgow protesting about okay, they're 8, 9 years old, but that makes, you've got to start somewhere. You might not necessarily want to start from here. And while we're on the subject of that, you might not want to start at the bottom, but small increments make a difference. Small wins. Think positive. Thank you very much.